Leadership is not about being the smartest person in the room, is not working the longest amount of hours, and it's definitely not about the title. If you want real influence, respect, and results, I will share 10 leadership skills that you must master. The first skill is self-awareness. Great leaders know what they're strong at, what they're weak at, what their blind spots are, and what triggers them. If you look back at last week and you assess how well you performed, or did you cause or did you instigate a conflict, really think about, did you actually know, or do you actually know what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are? It's really important to understand those strengths and strengthen them even further, but it's also important to understand what your weaknesses are. Because when you go into a meeting or when you're having a conversation and there's politics being played out, others can manipulate you or use you at your weaknesses. If you get angry really easily and others know that and they're very patient or know how to manipulate a situation, they're going to use that against you, so you look bad, so that you have shame against you, and you end up being the one that's not in charge of the conversation. So it's really important to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your blind spots, and your triggers. And the way you can do that, most importantly, is each day journal. Write down the conversations, the different interactions that you had. If you're leading a large team, small team, and if there's certain things that didn't go well, then start recording those, because then you can look over the week and say, okay, I always seem to lose patience with conversations with this other manager or this other coworker. Then you can start to strategize, well, how do I go about intentionally not losing control of the conversation so that I can have the upper hand? Again, it's really important to have self-awareness as a manager and to grow to be a successful VP or any other higher level position. The second tactic is communication. It's a very important skill. Being able to listen, being able to talk. When you're talking, are you being clear, concise? Are you sure that the person you're having the conversation to, whether it's one of your employees, is actually understanding what you're trying to relay to them? It's important to set expectations on things that you communicate with your employees. And when you see that there's underperformance, that you're providing feedback early and not waiting months to provide the feedback. You want to be kind and appreciative of your employees, but you also don't want to sugarcoat things and give them a false impression of how they're performing. Therefore, if an employee is consistently procrastinating on managing their team, perhaps your direct reports manage others, and you see that team's failing, they're not really performing at the level that they should, and generally you're finding that it's because that manager or that supervisor is procrastinating all the time and getting their particular task done. Well, you need to bring that other leader into the room and have a real discussion with them, set the expectations, explain how their procrastination is impacting the performance of that team overall. Leaders have a very important role because they set the tone of the whole team. So again, communication is a critical skill, in two aspects: is listening and speaking, and making sure that you're doing those both well. Skill number 3, decisiveness. We all can look back at the last week and see how indecisive we were on particular decisions that we should have made or that we should have made more quickly. Some personalities, some people, they like to have the perfect amount of data to make the perfect decision. Unfortunately, some decisions that have less risk in the wrong answer don't need to have all the data. They can be made much more sooner. And yes, some decisions that could impact $1 million loss to a company, well, yes, we understand that those are going to need a little bit more knowledge and understanding. But typically, indecisiveness does not come with you making a decision about a project or something else. It usually comes when you've got two of your employees that have a difference of opinion on doing something. And now you've got to be the one to actually make the decision. You've got to break the tie and figure out which direction the team's going. And that can be extremely difficult. But if you specifically, like I said in the first skill, if you journal and you record times when you were indecisive and you start to look at those and the repeat nature of those and start making it at the forefront, when you go and have to make a decision between two employees, you can just intentionally bite the bullet and just do it and start recording how many times going forward you're actually just making a decision versus historically where 50% of the time you wouldn't. Now you're making a decision 80% of the time. So it's really important to journal this as well, because you want to see that you're starting to become more confident and more in control of just making decisions. And the decisions I'm talking about are typically the simple ones that don't have a high risk, but you're afraid to offend one of your employees because the other one thinks differently on the direction. So decisiveness will bring forward trust, even if it seems like you're not making friends with a decision. Indecisiveness will break trust and will break your team. And they'll come to you less and less, and you will start to have a less performing team than what you did if you would have basically went and just started making decisions on things. So decisiveness is very critical as a leader. Skill number 4, accountability. There's two sides of accountability. There's accountability when things go wrong within your team, and there's accountability when things go right and your team looks good. And you take ownership of one and the other. So when things go wrong, when your team fails, instead of you going and pointing fingers at your employee, or if somebody's already beating down your employee, getting on the bandwagon and joining them, take accountability and say, yes, my team failed. Our team failed. I take ownership. I own that. We are going to see within our team what we need to change so that we can do this process better, so that we minimize, so we mitigate failures. When things go right, the last thing you want to do is say, yep, it was all me, even if 90% of it was you. It's about making your team shine, because the more you make your team shine, the more respect they're going to have for you. You want to build zero respect? Take credit for everything your team does. Consistently do that, and you'll see the lack of respect that your team has for you. But you want to build respect with your team and create a stronger relationship with them. Make them shine, make them look good. Give them the credit all the time, as much as possible. It's more about building that cohesion between yourself and your team. There are many folks that you will see that always take credit, and perhaps you're like, oh, he's looking good all the time. But it only goes on for so long. People see through that, and they don't, get a strong working team. So it's really important with regards to accountability. Take accountability yourself when your team fails and give credit to your team when they succeed. Skill number 5, emotional intelligence. This is a strong skill, and there are many books written on emotional intelligence. Really, it's, do you understand the nature, the feeling within the room or within the conversation? Do you have empathy? Are you able to listen and understand the other side of the person? Are you able to understand different personalities and the reason why they're acting in a certain way? Emotional intelligence is about being the adult in the room. If you've worked at any company for any period of time, you will realize that there's a small percentage of people that are the true adult in the room, that don't slander, don't bash other people. They continue to lead for the company and not for their own motivation. They don't get caught up in fighting in conflict with others. They bite their tongue when they need to. A lot of people, they just spit out whatever's on their mind, and they end up in the HR office or always under a disciplinary process, or they don't last long within a company. Emotional intelligence is about being the adult in the room. It's about making sure that if you see the shift within your meeting, perhaps, that you're not, and it's going into a negative aspect, negative trend, you're not following that. You're holding back. You're waiting for a time when perhaps you can help bring it back, but not playing into others' games as well. It's really important to be the adult in the room and to make sure that you're not following suit with all the negative work culture. Number 6, vision and direction. Are you a visionary as a leader? It's really important to know the long-term path that your team is on, because if you don't have a path, if you don't know where you're going, then you're just going to fall straight into the bush or into the ditch, and you're going to drag your whole team along with you. Leaders that have performed well have a strong vision, strong purpose, and they share that with their team. Maybe in different ways, but their team generally knows what's important long term for the performance of the team. Strategy can be about, your 3-year roadmap, your 5-year roadmap. There can be small steps taken. You have a 1-year roadmap to share with your employees to give them a sense of what's really meaningful in the now. But critically speaking, you want to have a strategy. You want to write it down. You want to share it with your team. When you have a strategy, it's more likely that your team is going to perform at a higher level. Think about it. Have you ever went to the airport? You purchased a ticket and you just got on a plane and went, and you didn't even know where you're going? Of course not. So when you're being paid within a company, the company owner or the investor or the shareholders, they're paying you to take them in the right direction, to take the company in the right direction. So it's very critical that you always know the direction you're going and making sure that your team understands that direction as well. The 7th skill is delegation. Do you do everything yourself, or do you delegate out some of the work? Are you insecure to delegate out some of the work? I struggle back and forth on this. Many people struggle with delegation because they're wanting something to be done perfectly, yet that perfection is in their mind what is perfect. It's not necessarily what the perfect result is. It's what they perceive as being perfect. And they know that if giving it to somebody else, that task, it may be done differently and not perceived in their mind to be perfect. So when you're afraid to delegate, think about why you're holding back from delegating and understanding that, even if it gets to the same route in a different road, it doesn't matter. As long as you generally get to the same location, everything is good. It helps to offload some of your work to others, and also others that are interested in taking on additional tasks, building up their experience level so that they can take over a higher level position as well. That's an important area where you want to delegate and you want to grow your employees. So therefore, don't be afraid about delegating. Think about that everything you think is not necessarily perfection, and that really all you want to be doing is moving that task ahead. Because if you take everything on, as you know, things will take a lot longer, 3 months, 6 months to get done, versus you give it to someone, it gets close to where you wanted it to end up, maybe not perfectly, but you got it done 6 months ahead of schedule. That's why delegation is critical, because every day counts when we're talking about business and money. Money and time are really critical, and they're very well interlinked. Skill number 8, conflict management. The longer that you're within a leadership role, the more conflict that you'll have to get yourself involved in, unfortunately. And it will be with people that you wouldn't have even expected. So therefore, the most important thing when conflict comes at you, that you stay silent, you pause, you let the people, if it's conflict directly at you, don't speak, just listen. Let the person carry on with whatever the issue is. And in a way, unfortunately, let them be shamed by themselves. Because if someone comes at you yelling, screaming, swearing, and you don't yell, scream, or swear, they have nothing against you. Therefore, you have the upper hand. If you just come back calmly to them, even if they go away angry, you still have the upper hand, because you didn't do anything that would be offensive, yet they came offensively at you. So it's really important that you never give a conflict situation where somebody comes at you the upper hand. Always stay calm in conflict. As well, when we talk about conflict management, if somebody's doing something that they're not supposed to be and you're afraid to talk to them, well, unfortunately, as a leader, you're being paid to deal with conflict. You're being paid to manage employees. There's the rare occasion where you are managing machines and you are the only person in the shop in an automation line of 2 machines, and that's all that happens. That's just silliness. We all manage people. People are not perfect. There will be conflict. Don't leave situations where you need to address a conflict between 2 employees too long. Maybe they'll work it out, but quite often, you need to get involved and you need to deal with conflict head on, straight on, and address issues immediately. Don't leave things lingering because you're afraid. The more you deal head on with conflict and situations, the more confident you become and the better you become at biting your tongue and having the patience within to not allow the situation to escalate. Skill number 9, adaptability. Life changes, businesses change. You've got customer changes. There's many different things. And if you've dealt with continuous improvement or process improvement, you'll understand that when you go to a work cell or a department and say, we are going to change this process, there'll always be some people that are very ingrained in the process that can't accept the change. You have to work through that. But the most important thing is you yourself have to be adaptable to the changes in the business. It's about taking ownership that you understand things will continue to change, product lines will change, even ownership of a company will change. You have to be prepared to be adaptable at all times. Otherwise, you'll get kicked out of your position at some point if you're not willing to change. So adaptability is very critical, and it's a very useful tool in performing at higher levels. When you see that your team is stagnant or your performance is stagnant, looking at what needs to change within the department and being open to changing things is critical to moving the department's performance to a new level, to a new plateau. So don't forget, when someone comes to you and says, we need to change this, the first thing you think about is, how can I help with this change? Not how can I hinder? Skill number 10, courage. Probably one of the most critical skills that you can have as a leader. You don't just get courage when you become a leader, when you have a leadership title. It takes experience. Yes, personalities that are more direct and just do things, just make things happen, don't really think things through. That's not necessarily courage. That's just their personality. But courage comes from where you're making a big change or where you actually have to do something that could affect others, and there could be some repercussion to that, yet it has a positive impact to the company, and you just step out and do it. That is real courage. An example is when you have an underperforming employee, or you have an employee that is just extremely negative to the work culture that you're trying to build. It may come to the point where you can't just keep managing the employee and having that employee create a negative work culture with others in your company. There may come a time where you have to go ahead and make the decision to fire that employee, terminate them. Typically, in my experience, when you actually make that decision, employees will come after and they'll say, I'm happy you did that. What took so long? It was the best decision, and you're always overthinking it. So courage is really critical to making decisions that are going to impact the business for the long haul. Don't shy away from things. If you know that they're going to benefit or have positive benefit to the company, the performance, to the work culture, to a group of other employees, sometimes you need to think a bit about it, and you need to make the decision to actually have the courage to make that decision and move that company in a positive direction. If you like the content of this video, like and subscribe to the channel. I'm a new channel. I'm an operations manager for many years, and I'm looking to provide my own experience, my own knowledge. I will be providing a weekly video to help you, and also you can contact me to get any advice that you're looking for free of charge.